We got this this story, London and UK street news, pro-Palestinian activists throw live mice into McDonald's. I kid you not. Here's the video clip. All right, we'll turn that down. And you've got the Free Palestine. They've got the okay,
the
like
mice?
seriously, don't do anything like this because, dude, what? Like this is so mean to the mice. Let alone like the illegality of doing this. Look at this. This is pro-Palestinian activists walks into a McDonald's. This is in the UK. They say rats at McDonald's, but these are clearly mice. And then,
God help us.
That's so messed up, dude.
Hell no.
Those poor mice. Like those mice are probably gonna get killed now because of it for no reason. They should be fed to a snake or something.
And they want you to do it.
Are they
going to
do it in Starbucks too?
What is the point? What is the point of ruining the community that you live in?
They say, hold on, look at this. They say Starbucks. They say targeted boycott the big three. Start by boycotting these brands that are directly involved in supporting the Israeli apartheid. Starbucks, McDonald's, and Disney Channel. Well, okay.
How does that help their cause? I mean, who is going to say, "Oh yeah, they threw rats. We got to be on Palestine's side"?
It's just malicious and destructive.
And it's disruptive to business. I mean, that's the point, right? You release mice into a restaurant, they have to shut down for a couple hours.
The
McDonald's,
or maybe not. I don't know.
McDonald's, maybe
the thread that runs through a lot of the protests and stuff like that is just anti-Western, anti-capitalism. So the whole Palestinian thing, like the Palestinians are fighting the Israelis are generally looked at as a Western democracy. This is an attack on capitalism, they think, or they would probably consider it an attack on capitalism, an attack on Western consumerism, an attack on actual Western, things that are in the West, So the fact that the left is kind of a monolith now, I think that's part of why it's playing out like this.
Yeah. And nothing will happen to them in London, and they know that. London is a disgrace. The entire UK is a disgrace, what they let people get away with. That's why it's such a disaster.
But you
it's
can't.
A mess. All of the amount of raping, the acid attacks, the disaster.
They're literally arresting people for silently praying outside of an abortion clinic.
Yeah. Several times. There's a lot of those videos.
Multiple people get arrested for literally standing there and not saying anything.
Social media posts too. I mean, there are many people. I knew a woman over there went to jail just because she used to go and protest in Hyde Park. She used to not protest, but Speaker's Corner, which was supposed to be all about free speech. They arrested this woman I know 2 times because they didn't like her speech. Well, it's Speaker's Corner. That's the point of it. It's the whole of Europe has become woke. I mean, that's why they're being taken over. Mm-hmm. That's why the whole place is being destroyed.
And they want us to pay for their defense.
Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. We shouldn't be giving them a thing. We should be out of NATO. We should let them just do whatever they want.
Out of NATO.
Out of NATO. Get out. Get out. Let them fend for themselves. You want to be woke? You want to be all into that crap? Get out.
This is going to be really interesting, though, as that's basically what's happening is the American people are basically fed up with the failures of Europe and us footing the bill. Yeah. And we've been footing the bill since basically World War I.
Yeah.
And why?
They're letting themselves become invaded. They are allowing even Italy, Spain, all these countries, they get people over from North Africa all day. They come in, they have no respect for the culture of Europe, no respect for the history of Europe. They come in, they rape all the women like it's their job. They do all these awful, awful things to the communities. They take over entire towns. Well, what are we supposed to do? Bail them out when it turns hot, when it gets into a real bad
so the issue
fire?
is the unchecked immigration and these videos of people landing on boats and rushing into the country.
Yeah.
I don't think the issue is immigration.
No, not immigration as a whole, but these are people that nobody knows who they are. Somebody came with a goat yesterday on an NGO boat into Italy. There was a video of, it could have been an emotional support goat.
It's an asylum seeker. What are you talking about?
It's an asylum seeker with his
It's not an asylum
partner
seeker.
Or whatever you want to call it.
No, goat is not seeking asylum. That's true.
The goat might be because God knows what's happening to him on that boat.
But goats are based, and we like goats. And the issue is, this is why I want to be careful of not conflating.
Right.
If there's a legitimate asylum case, and the issue
but how
is,
do we know?
No. They're not asylees. They're not asylees.
None of them. No,
they're not.
No,
these people are economic migrants as per the UN.
Yes.
So when people are like I think it's important to draw the distinction specifically because it's the argument used by the left to justify having no border security. So AOC specifically saying they're legal asylees. No. The people that we're upset about are quite literally the people who are criminals, not the immigrants and the asylum seekers who are either legitimately coming here because they love this country or they want to seek opportunity and they're filing the paperwork. The people that are the issue are the people who are breaking the laws,
Yes.
coming here, and then continue cartel members,
Yeah.
et cetera, and then they're going and committing crimes.
Right. And it's an insult
And
to people who do it the right way.
And
It's
the
a
left
big
is trying to
insult.
make sure that when we talk about it, it's one group
Yes.
instead of completely separate groups of people.
Right.
If people really liked, as for Europe, the problem is they're not having kids.
None.
Yeah, I don't know if this is true. People are saying that Italy hasn't recorded a birth in a few months, something like this. I don't think that's true.
What did they say? Italy hasn't recorded a birth period?
In 3 months.
Oh, please.
I don't know if that's true.
No, that's definitely not true. No.
But when you look at the fertility rates, I talked about this last week in the U.S. and Europe, they are collapsing.
Right.
And it's not just like, oh, look, they're down, because they were down before. It's worse now.
Yeah.
It's worse. But I will say the path towards winning the culture war is actually really simple at this point too. It's just anybody who wants to win just needs to have 5 kids.
Yeah, it's a long-term
true.
investment in the future.
This is true. Yeah.
But I don't think that people, I think about this all the time, which is like we say you should have children, but that tide's going to turn really slowly. And I wish that there were more ways to get people engaged in making a difference right now.
It's easy to say have children, but you can't get a house in this country right now. The interest rates are 8%, but who can afford a child? I mean, how many children do I see when I come to your food bank and you're lying? That they can't be fed. They can't afford 5 kids right now.
Yeah, but
if they want them to have kids, they should put some incentives in place.
Look at Hungary. Hungary did a great job. You have 4 kids, you don't pay income tax.
Yeah.
right.
Where's that policy?
The child tax credit. I think
Yeah.
Biden was talking about doing that. Democrats were talking about doing it. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
It's a bipartisan issue because if our birth rate declines too far for too long, we did see an increase in the years after COVID, very, very slightly, not enough to, really say the tide has turned. But it should be a bipartisan, cross-cultural, everyone needs to be having more children. And instead, the narrative is, especially on the left, well, we can't have children. Everyone agrees it's too expensive, but they also argue the environment. The environment can't take this. You're overpopulating. There's too much pollution. This, that, and the other.
but
it's not
climate
true.
change
But
garbage.
it'll be difficult to fight that narrative. And ultimately, as much as I would love it if just conservatives had millions of children each, ultimately you need a lot of people, including the moderates who are on the fence, who might hear these arguments to have children.
The problem is it's very, very much perception and standards, and people don't want to live beneath the modern standards. And that's that. I get it. I can respect it. But I don't know how you can look at people who came to this country on boats and landed on desolate shores with their kids. These people were like, imagine if the original pioneers who came to this country were like, nah, I can't have a family because I can't afford medical care, a house, insert. Yeah, no, 20% of the people died on the boats. And they came here anyway with nothing. And now I know people are saying, yeah, but like you can't even build a house. Back then you could like build a fortress, or like you could build a little house somewhere in the middle of the woods at least, and people would work with you to build houses. And it's like you could move out of cities and struggle and have a 20% chance of death like the original pioneers and colonists, and then find look, if you move out of the city and go somewhere where it's rural, where the houses are really cheap, and then you start doing the work, the physical labor to build your house, you have a 100% survival chance.
But are people built like that anymore?
That's the issue.
I don't think anybody's
So,
really
but
built like that
saying that we're not built like that is not an excuse as to why the people who came before us were hardy and more tough, more resilient, and more willing to take the risks. Just saying like it's too hard today. I'll be like, it was harder back then.
I don't believe.
Certainly, you can succeed.
I don't believe that that money is the real deciding factor, like people's inability to afford to have kids. I don't think that that's the real deciding factor. I don't know that I have a strong opinion on what it is. I think it's probably cultural and has to do with people's upbringing and stuff. But there've been a lot of times there's a long time of our history where people had a significantly lower standard of living and they were punching out kids like it was their job.
Yeah.
So it's not that they have to have X amount of dollars to be able to afford kids. When you have kids, no matter how much money you make, unless you're like really independently wealthy, you probably always feel like if you had a little more, it would be easier, you know? And so really the thing is, if you want to have kids, you go and have kids. That's what people do. If people find it important to have kids, they don't wait until they have a certain amount of money. They want to have kids, they have kids.
Yeah, America's declining birth rate parallels declining community participation. So it is generally a turning away from the building of any sort of social group, right? I mean, the family is not just a social group, but it is a core unit of your community, and you kind of make decisions from there. And I think especially people look to one another. And so even if we can never put a finger on exactly why people choose not to, the more people who choose not to, the more likely the people around them also opt not to have children.
That's
That
true.
has
There's a lot of
intense
propaganda
effect.
again. Look at that. What's that beast's name? Handler, Chelsea Handler. Always posting those TikToks. I didn't
What's
have any
that
kids.
beast?
I flew to France this week. I'm so happy.
No, she is happy. Good for her.
I'm sure
But-
she, yeah.
So I was looking at 3,000 square feet of land for the in a city in Martinsburg for $19,000.
Wow.
Okay. Not a lot of people have. A lot of people probably don't have $19,000. You can get a loan for it if you want to pay for it, but you can get an acre of land for half that if you go out to the middle of nowhere. Now here's the question: if you went and bought an acre out, 2 hours west of DC in the middle of a field somewhere, bought the land, built a makeshift little hut for your family. Your family was filthy, covered in dirt, bathing in the swimming hole, and you were eating and hunting for food, and then you were slowly cutting down trees and having your kids help you build your house, which was very small. Would anyone consider that to be a reasonable standard of living for people in this country?
CPS would be there instantaneously.
The answer is no.
Yeah.
No, I don't think CPS would be there instantaneously, not at all, because there's tons of families that are completely neglected and ignored, and these children are left to suffer. I'm talking about parents who are actually taking care of their kids the old-fashioned way. They'd probably be completely ignored. But nobody wants to do that.
Right.
The idea that you would be living in the wilderness, basically, with no resources, no electricity, living off the land is unthinkable and unheard of. And that is the difference between then and now. Back then, granted, you didn't really buy the land. You just went and set up somewhere where no one had a claim.
Right.
Nowadays, you have to actually buy it. So you'll need some money, meaning you gotta have some savings. But nobody's going to do it. Nobody thinks it's reasonable to buy an acre of land and then start building a house, taking care of their family. Or even more reasonably, you could buy probably 5 acres for $10,000 somewhere far out in the middle
What
of
are there
nowhere.
jobs out there? That's the
What do you
thing,
need a job? I'm talking about eating deer and eating wild fruit and learning which leaves you can eat. So our ancestors quite literally did this, knowing like, hey, winter might come, we might die. But they're like, we're gonna hunt, we're gonna, and they had basic skills. But people today don't have this. And so again, I think it is unreasonable to expect anyone to do this. But this creates the predicament. When we say we can't afford a house, we're saying we can't afford insulation, air conditioning, clean running water. All of these things are part of the standard that we have to maintain and we expect to maintain for our families. But no one wants to have kids unless they can maintain what is effectively living like a space king by medieval standards. The idea that your house is insulated or that you have running water is like the kings didn't even have this. Granted, Roman Empire had indoor plumbing. My point is, we've talked about how technology becomes necessity, luxury becomes necessity. When cell phones come out, only rich people, the wealthiest people have them, and you don't need to have a cell phone. But if you do, wow! Now cell phones you have to have it.
Right.
You can't get a job without it, and these things cost money. So now all of these luxuries have become necessities, and no one can afford to do it, and nobody wants to go and live back off the dirt like we used to back in the day.
No, I think it would be impossible for people to avert. I mean, the people I know who do really live off the grid, very few of them have a lot of children, and I think that there are a lot of reasons for that, right? It is the reason we have iPad kids is because modern conveniences are built into a lot of parenting nowadays, and it's not that it's bad or good, although it's not great.
And usually both parents are out of the household now. The mother's not there with the kids anymore.
Right. And to maintain a
Which is a
modern
mess.
standard of living, you would need both incomes in most families.
You do.
And
You
so,
need it. It's. I mean, people are not getting by. Well, it's real. And another part of this is the no fault divorces that ruin the men. They have to be careful. And then the child support comes in, and then you get ruined, and everything you built, you get screwed.
There's very
the society's not set up to incentivize it.
There is not a lot of incentive for people to get married anymore in the United States. There's very, very little incentive. It's
the other way around. there's a tremendous disincentive.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fair enough. If you
Which is funny because, like, statistically, it bears out that children who are born to married families do better, right?
course.
There's
Oh, yeah,
all sorts of
100%.
benefits, keeping the family
Absolutely.
intact. There's no cultural incentive, but actually, if you look at it, marriage is hugely beneficial. And so we have to remind people why we had marriage in the first place, that there was a good thing.
there's marriage is beneficial to individuals, to families, to people, but all of the outside incentives disincentivize marriage.
Yes.
All of the things that our society does, the media disincentivizes it. All of the, I mean,
Social media.
yeah, absolutely. So, and until we can remedy that, I think that we're going to continue to have, instability in family creation.
And in culture. I mean, again, family is at the core of all society. So if the family is unstable, why would the society be stable? That doesn't make sense.
Yep. That's very true.
I think at a certain point, someone super chatted talking about Japan, for instance, population's going to dramatically decline. It's going to have very interesting effects on global power structures, and then there will be a pendulum swinging the other direction.
I think you can say that as well. If you look at Japan, they currently have all of the younger people in our generation, pardon me, are all essentially making all their money from taking care of the elderly. Like, it's like a whole industry in Japan, and it's not sustainable
having
for a
kids.
long term. Yeah, they're not having kids because they're too busy with their jobs, et cetera, et cetera. It's a whole cultural problem.
Feminism.
Yeah.
When we eliminated the female traditional role
Yeah.
and had women take on the male traditional role,
Right.
this is what ends up happening.
Very true. This is the end result. What are we, like 50 years into feminism, or a
It's-
little more?
it's-
What do you say we are?
It's not feminism.
Well-
It's the birth control pill.
I
I think it's one of the same.
Well,
that's a component of it.
Because you can have feminism and have the ideas all you want, but if you don't have the birth control pill, and people just do not have the capacity to behave the way that they do now, the free sex, the free love stuff that
Yeah, but that's
doesn't
abortion,
happen.
too.
That doesn't happen. No,
Yeah,
well,
big time, that's
maybe,
abortion.
but I think that you wouldn't get to the point where abortion happens regularly if you didn't have the pill. The pill allows women to go to work regularly. The pill allows a lot of women. It stabilizes.
Women
their
can go to
menstrual-
work if they weren't on the pill.
They'll end up getting pregnant.
well,
and have
it
to take care
it
of
just
the kid.
allows people to act like
No, no, no.
feral animals. and
Exactly.
eat.
No,
That's
no, no.
the
The pill had a huge effect.
I agree, and so does abortion. But there are a lot of women who don't take birth control pills who go to work. It is a social norm that women must work. That's it. Women must get jobs and must take care of themselves.
But that is an effect of the pill. That is not a cause.
but I think
I don't think so. I don't think you can say that they're related in that way. They're two things that are a component of a similar thing, but they're independent of each other.
Yeah. I also think that during the birth control movement, there were already women who were working who thought, well, now that I'm liberated, I have my own money, I want to be able to behave different sexually. I mean, I want a different life. I think in some ways, women entering the workforce encourage them to get on birth control, but I don't think it's the other way around. There are all kinds of reasons that women wanted or thought that, the women's lib movement was attractive. And ultimately, like I said with AI, they pay a price that they don't know what it will be. And the birth control pill is incredibly dangerous. It's overprescribed, in my opinion. It does, I think you're right, it does allow women to stay in the workforce for longer, but I think they were already looking for ways out. I think there were arguments against separating the family before the birth
It
control
was
pill
the
came on the
first
market.
step that allowed women to behave as men.
I don't think that's
Sexually.
true. I think that women already there were women's movements to give them. I mean, this was the whole argument with suffrage, right? Men can vote, so we should be able to do that. That has nothing to do with the birth control pill. This has been going on for a long time. Is it good? And I think probably birth control expedited it. I'm no fan of the birth control pill, but I don't think that it was the birth control pill that opened the door for feminism. It was already there. It was just a ticking time bomb. I think in some ways feminism allowed people to be more accepting of the birth control pill because they saw it as this progressive choice for women.
I agree with Anna Claire on that. I looked it up. The birth control was invented in 1950. It was when it was first introduced. But like women's suffrage movement and women entering the workplace was happening in the early 1900s. These arguments for changing in the roles happened with industrialization and probably population expansion and the security state. When women became secure, they no longer need men in the same way that men need women. So, if you go back to well before industrialization, women are more vulnerable than men. Men protect women. But once we eliminated the bears, the wolves, the coyotes, and the external threats and had centralized police forces. Now it's like the state can function as the man for the woman in general, and the women can go do whatever they want, but now they need money to do whatever they want.
Right.
Which probably leads to the creation of birth control. Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.